Folks, thanks so much for tuning in at the start of the week. And I hope you saw on Saturday on what we proposed and predicted would be the events for you to be watching this week as days unroll. And it has already started happening. So let's get into it. And by the way, before we start, what would your guess be is going to get more media coverage? A story about some Canada geese getting run over, or a story about somebody trying to run over a bunch of children? In Canadian media, guess which one got the most interest? Well, let's just jump right into it with the ongoing issues related to Iran. We try and keep you up daily there, and President Trump is saying they are absolutely committed to going in and getting the what is called the uranium dust, what is left of the bombing raids, which successfully took out Iran's uh, total nuclear plan in terms of developing nuclear weapons, but the dust remains and they want to go and get it. And yet at the same time, showing a high level of trust to allow um, Saudi Arabia, with the permission of Israel, to go ahead and develop for domestic purposes their own uranium industry. And it shows that if you are a nation that is absolutely committed, it's your stated intent, and you broadcast it daily that you want to nuke the entire nation of Israel and you want to kill Christians and Jews everywhere, that being Iran, you're going to run into trouble. And if you are declaring yourself to be a peaceful nation, not with those intents like Saudi Arabia, then you're going to have more of a chance to make progress in the development, the positive development of nuclear material. So let's watch as we see, are the Americans, it would mean boots on the ground, are they going to go in to get the dust in Iran? We'll see. One story is speculating, or actually a couple right now, is the U.S. running out of, not completely running out, but running down in terms of their supply of missiles and interceptors, because if they are, that would be a signal to China. If ever China wanted to make a move on Taiwan, now would be the time to do it. So things are a little bit on edge, and could be the reasons there is a pause right now. Neither Iran nor the U.S. for 3 nights now have bombed each other's targets. Let's see what happens with that. Going to be interesting. Even as Iran says they want to negotiate peacefully, there's new giant billboards gone up in downtown Tehran on Jamhuri Street. I've been there. I've been to that particular part of Tehran, of Iran and Tehran. It's kind of like the Times Square. Huge pictures of Trump, and with a bunch of hands strangling him around his neck, and he's appearing to be screaming. Other pictures of the bloodied corpses of Melania Trump and her son Barron Trump are being displayed around Iran. So on the one hand, they say they want peace. On the other hand, they're stirring it up pretty good. Well, in the threat of nuclear activity, there's a report out today, and very interesting, because here, I'll make a little prediction here, that you're going to see some movement. I don't know that it'll be cataclysmic, but some movement to certain states that are declared to be on what's called nuke map. You can look that up, nuke map, and it shows where to be living in North America if you want to be able to recover from a nuclear war. Are there some so-called safer zones than others from nuclear dust? And it would appear West Texas, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, judging from what the scientists are saying and how the wind flows go and everything else, that if you live in those states, you're going to have a slightly better chance of surviving a nuclear winter. I know that's far-fetched stuff, but watch for it, folks. There will be those who are very nervous about this type of thing. There will be some real estate movement in those directions. I don't know how you advertise that, but watch for that to be happening. Now, of course, Standard & Poor's index on the stock market is showing signs of nervousness. The NASDAQ, that's the collection of tech companies that are measured to see what kind of growth there's going to be. They are nervous. Oil is up again, as it had been slowly going down and down. It's back up now. If you live in California, you're going to be paying over $5 a gallon. If you live maybe in Texas, you're going to be in the 342 range or the 332 range. So oil prices beginning to crawl up again. In New York, we're seeing now Mayor Mandami has been talking about this thing on never ending, almost daily food security. I've said before, I want to say again and remind people anytime you hear politicians talking about so called food security, that's to give the excuse of governments or politicians taking over the market when it comes to the provision of foods and groceries. If you want food security, the most secure markets for food in the world are probably United States and Canada because they have a free market system when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to farming, when it comes to processing and production, and when it comes to sale. And one thing that socialists can't stand, and they hate the thought of markets being able to provide things for people and to be able to provide jobs and to keep down the cost of living. And this I've been warning about this. Listen to politicians. If they're talking food security, you tell them to back off, that every time government gets involved in any area of business, it gets more complicated, it gets more regulated. The poor wind up suffering in the long run. And so you say, well, why do politicians do it? The reason politicians do it is because if they can broaden the base of the poor and the needy, they can promise free subsidies and free stuff, and therefore they know they will increase their votes. So please push back when you hear politicians starting to talk about this. It's now been confirmed in New York's 5 boroughs. New York is basically made up of 5 boroughs, as they call them. We might call them inside counties. There are going to be grocery stores opened up by the government of New York City where they're saying vital groceries are going to be offered at a 30% discount, 30% lower than you can buy in regular grocery stores. Folks, that is not free. That money comes from taxing others. It comes from subsidizing. It comes from raising people's property values, all to make more people dependent on government and increase the chance for leftist socialist governments to get reelected. Get more people to depend on you, you'll get more votes. So it's been announced. It's an awful thing, and you watch. Food is going to go up exponentially in New York, and acquisition of certain food products is going to become more difficult. An absolute, complete, and utter disaster. Media will not blow the whistle on it because media, as we've talked about before, is culturally Marxist and therefore left-leaning, and they think this is a wonderful idea. So hold your breath as we watch that one. On a counter story coming out of the Wall Street Journal today, journalist Chip Cutter over there at the Wall Street Journal talking about recent announcements in the last 2 days now by some huge companies, Alphabet, of course, with derivatives there from Google and other large tech companies announcing major hiring plans going into the thousands of people actually because of AI. When AI disrupts in one area, it opens up opportunities in another. So that story won't get as much play as the potential loss of jobs, but some of the majors now saying they are moving into a significant hiring curve upward. Newsweek magazine is reporting that Putin over there in Russia has now declared he's going on a major and an ongoing recruiting into the army, looking to raise 300 to 500,000 more men. I was going to say young men. No, it's raised now to the age of 60 that you will be mandatory conscripted into the army. This is the time when Putin's poll numbers are dropping. He's becoming less popular. They are reporting reliably, it's being reported in Russia since February of 2022, 1.4 million casualties. That's a combination of dead and severely injured. These are huge numbers. The population in Russia becoming not quite so happy with their president. So we'll see how his push to get more men into the army, to see how that is going to go. It may surprise people to know that part of the recruits that are coming into Russia's army are from North Korea. And it's estimated now 12,000 soldiers have moved out of North Korea to assist the Russian army. That's very significant. And also another significant development over the weekend, we saw the great dear leader in North Korea attending the annual anniversary ceremonies of the Korean War, which they claim to have won, which of course they didn't. And his daughter, this is the great leader's daughter, and her name is J.I. and she is rumored to be the next leader of North Korea. Previously, she has been pictured doing things like firing a rifle. One picture of her that got widely distributed of her driving a tank. So showing that here's a woman with, no fear of things military, and she attended with her father the ceremony, the anniversary ceremony of the battle that took place in Korea. So more signs that she will be assuming leadership whenever that might happen. Well, President Zelensky is also in a bit of trouble in Ukraine, with people questioning his general, his top general, Volodymyr. Or no, sorry, his top general's name is Alexander Surisky. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. And under protest from people and pressure from people, he's fired his top general, brought in a new one. So it shows, whether you're in Ukraine or whether you're in Russia, pressure from people continues to build. Well, on a happy note, the Gordie Howe Bridge officially opened today, and kind of exciting, kind of cool to see that the first people crossing the bridge in an official capacity are members of Gordie Howe's family. Gordie Howe, of course, deceased, famous hockey player, wonderful guy that just a hero to thousands and thousands of Canadians. And of course, on the across the bridge on the Detroit side, they will be reminding us that yes, they won the Stanley Cup in Detroit 4 times because of Gordie. But anyway, bridge opening today. It's about $8 to drive your car across, and bring your passport if you're going either direction. So we'll get into more discussion on the tariffs and the cost of that. But Gordie Howe Bridge finally opened, kind of an exciting time there. There are reports across the country from the Institute of Health, the Canadian Institute of Health, talking about the ongoing amount of doctors that are leaving, especially in the ER, emergency area. And over half of all doctors have reduced their hours. This is right across the board in terms of supplying healthcare. They're talking about burnout. Female doctors, increasingly, the major proportion of those experiencing burnout. Many, and we don't have the exact number, but it'd be in the mid thousands, 5,000, 6,000, having moved to the U.S. And it's not just for the money, but they say there's far less bureaucracy in the U.S. system, and they can practice and do what they want to do in terms of healing people in a better and more free, and let's face it, being compensated in a higher way. Canada, remember, is the only, I'm repeating that, the only democracy which continues to outlaw any type, or almost any type, of alternate hospital system. Many other countries, whether you're talking about the UK or Australia, many other countries successfully operate that. It will free up the lineups, it shortens the lineups, it quickens the the time you have to spend in ER. But again, if you even hint, especially as a politician, if you even hint, even breathe, that there should be alternate systems available for people, as long as you continue to make healthcare free and accessible to everybody, there should be alternate approaches that take pressure off the system. The mainstream media in Canada, triggered by the NDP, when anybody wants to discuss this, go completely berserk. If you really want to see intellectual insanity among media, you talk about systems that allow 2 tracks of getting healthcare, and they will go nuclear on you, talking about nuclear. And there are very few politicians who have the you-know-whats to be able to say there are better ways to do healthcare. No, we will continue to preside over a system which everybody pretends is free, but which increases our taxes hugely at the provincial level, at the federal level. It increases our taxes, and the lineups get longer. The care becomes more difficult to get. But don't you dare talk about an alternate system, or media will torch you. You will explode. And so politicians, in fear, don't talk about it, and we'll just watch more good Canadian doctors go to the US. Well, who do you think, what story do you think would garner more attention? A story about Canada geese getting run over, or a story about someone trying to run over children with a vehicle? Well, it's the story about the Canadian geese, and about a 19-year-old dumb kid actually swerved and tried to hit some Canada geese. I guess he did take a couple of them out. Not very nice. Nobody likes that thought. People up in arms about him, but not as much coverage on the story and the conviction today, and it's in news today in Durham County. 23-year-old driver going directly and intently into this. This happened recently, and it was in court on July 18th, and swerving to try and hit children. It was a miracle that he didn't actually hit and kill any. His name is brace yourself for it. Here's a surprise. His name was Ishmael Abrahamzadeh. Ishmael Abrahamzadeh. You know what that sounds like. I know what that sounds like. Media don't like to talk about that story. It's really, it's not just intellectual depravity. It's a form of intellectual insanity, and we all know why. Because those in the media think if they pronounce somebody's name or say a name that sounds Islamic or Muslim, it would be a terrible, awful thing to do. How about just give us information instead of your bias? But really sad to see the comparison of the approach of those two stories today. Well, in Ireland, there was reports today, even in Canadian media, in the township of Tuam, Ireland. There's a place called St. Mary's Mother and Baby Home, and this had existed. These homes in Ireland were founded when, as they say, when mothers were having children, as they said, out of wedlock. And this goes back to 1925. This particular home, there were a number of these, but ran from 1925 to 1961 before it was closed. And they have been investigating on the grounds, on the property there, the supposed remains of children, of babies, maybe even mothers, and using proper equipment and sound and ground testing equipment, they've been able to unearth and be able to bring to the surface 96 what they say are actual remains of babies. You know, if they're able to do that in Ireland, I think we should be helping our First Nations people. The federal government should not be making it more difficult for First Nations to do the same things in the Kamloops area where they're being criticized. Let them use some of the same technology that they've been using in Ireland and see where that goes. Well, Bloomberg Magazine is talking. Bloomberg Daily has reports. They interviewed some Gen Zs. They're pushing back a little on this notion that nobody who's Gen Z up to say 28 years old and even millennials can afford to buy a house anymore. Look, house costs have gone up incredibly, and I just published something. If you look over on X on my Twitter file at Stockwell_Day, you'll see in the city of Vancouver alone, on a median home, a median price home, $176,000 embedded in the cost are regulations and taxes. And this is, a frightful amount. And they say people, even with that, it's still possible for newcomers, for first-time homebuyers who get a 5% mortgage. And anyway, Bloomberg interviewed someone called Natalie Badur. She's 26 years old. And since she got her job when she was 19, she's been saving. She's been driving an old car. She's sharing a home and paying rent. She cooks all her meals at home. She does not spend $8 and $9 every time she walks past Starbucks for a protein shake, and documenting $300,000 in savings. A younger guy, 23 years old, lays out a plan. If you want to check these stories out, or just ask Chad about it, how can you save up money when you're making not much more than minimum wage, and how you can save up money within even 5 years to put a down payment on a house? Check out those stories. They're kind of hopeful. In Scotland, we see that a priest there by the name of Michael Mary. Now, Mary is his last name. I'm not saying he's named after the Virgin Mary. He's been booted now. He's been kicked out of the Catholic Church, as has the small order there in northern Scotland, kind of along the lines of the St. Pius order, that they've been kicked out because they're opposing the modernization trend that some are seeing under Pope Leo, and they don't like it. Well, counter to that, and actually nothing to do with that, but kind of on a interesting note, that the Pope has announced that on July 29th, there's going to be a beautiful concert, it sounds like, at the Castle Gondolfia. That sounds like Gandalf, sounds like Gandalf's castle. That'll appear to, that'll be kind of cool to a lot of fans of Gandalf. And there's going to be a huge concert there, and it's going to be a concert raising the issue of children trapped in warfare. Andrea Botticelli is going to be one of the singers, and others. That'll be an interesting event, and probably an inspiring event coming up on July 29th. Thanks for tuning in today, folks. Catch you tomorrow.